Hey everybody, welcome to the Weekly Whistle. May 11th, 2026. Vinny and I have a great breakdown for you today. We know, however, that the weekend has passed. It was Mother's Day weekend. So
Yes.
Vin?
Go ahead. How about you first? You're the mom here. Let's start with your Mother's Day. How was it?
Okay, it was amazing. I got to spend time with all of my children, so that's always the best part. They were all here. We're in Florida now, so we're down here in the Sunshine State, and that makes it a little bit. It was a little bit chilly in New York. We were there last week, so it was nice to be in the sun and out with all of them. And they're getting bigger, and it's bittersweet, but you know, and they make me grateful to be a mom.
Very cool.
How about
Very
you?
Cool. Everybody came over. I'm have the house that's kind of like in the middle, so everybody comes to my house. But we actually ordered Chinese food yesterday. Everybody, I have a
wait a minute. So you're Vinny, no mangiare pescare, and you eat Chinese food on a Sunday. Vin, you're killing us. You're killing
I know.
The
you know what?
Italians.
You know what? It was just something. I'm usually cooking big ziti and everything else, but you know what? We're having so much construction at the house with the outside deck being redone. I was like, let's just order some food. So that's what we did. And then Saturday we had the NCAA tournament, and the Mercy Mavericks lost 13-12 to Pace in the last 30 seconds. So it was heartbreaking senior year, but you know what? They went out with a bang. They got the ring for their division, and good for them. I'm going to miss it.
I know, but your daughter is a standout. So no matter what, at the end of the day, she shines. So, and let me tell you, that score 13-12, that must have been an amazing game.
It was, they won, but they didn't beat us. It was a nail biter. It could have went either way. They just happened to, pull it out at the very end. So that's it.
Okay.
All right. What do we got? We got a big show today, right?
We do. We have an amazing guest coming on as well. So I want to let everyone know that we're going to be talking, right, first and foremost about DEI. We're going to break down a couple of topics today that run into some other things with like Trump derangement syndrome and border security and, of course, the Hantavirus. So stick with us throughout the whole show. But we like to bring you with an up-to-date first with DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Why are we talking about it? Because it seems to be a hot topic in New York for definitely the past 5 years, 6 years now, as far as the public schools are concerned, and also just employment in New York State and the way New York State finances honestly have been invested in these type of topics. It just spans across so many aspects of the function of certain blue states and how it's used and abused. And that's what we'd like to look at. So today's guest is Mike Simonelli. He is a retired Army sergeant. He is also a retired Suffolk County police officer, as well as on the board of the PBA. He is the author of Justified Deadly Force, The Myth of Systemic Racism. He has been on DEI boards, including a parent student board at the public school in Suffolk. So we really appreciate his time and commitment to this topic. He has expertise in this area. We'd like to bring him on now and get down to what DEI is. Hi, Mike.
Good morning, Mike.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, Lisa. Nice to meet you, Vinny.
Yes.
Congrats on the new show. It's been a long time coming for you, Lisa, and you got a great partner here.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so let's start off here with the fact that DEI being pushed through the school system really seems to be their almost, their ace in the hole, because the control of the school system and the upbringing of children's thoughts, right, their ideology at a young age, we're going to see 10 years down the road the results of that. So this is like a long-term investment for those with bad intentions, so to speak, because they're influencing the children in a certain manner. And even though, parental support at home and parental guidance at home is really the basis of how, children's thinking can be formed, when you have such strong peer influence and strong role model influence, such as the teachers, it really does impact. I hear from so many parents, I don't know what happened after I sent my child to college. That's what we always hear. Let's bring it back. Let's look at it a larger scale. It's also being taken place across implementation across law enforcement, implementation across hiring practices. This thing has seeped into every crevice of definitely New York State, but we see it in Minnesota. We see it in all blue controlled territories. So you can see that when you see this particular action taking place in only certain places that are controlled by a certain political party, that perhaps there's a deeper meaning behind this, right? Some type of infiltration or a chess game of political warfare, so to speak. So, Mike,
Yes.
what can you tell us in your personal experience as DEI has evolved?
Unfortunately, I've been dealing with DEI for decades. At some point, I can give you an example with the NYPD going back to 2000. But if you want a quick history lesson for everybody, it goes back to Marxism. And what was Marxism? The theory of class conflict. Now, the 20th century, we saw severe losses for Marxism in hunger, famine, mass murders across Soviet Union, China, African countries, Cuba. So in the 60s, realizing that they're not going to win that battle based on class warfare in America, where you had a burgeoning middle class doing well, they used the racial upheaval of the 60s and they switched it from class warfare to racial warfare. Right.
Identity politics.
Identity politics 101. Right. They made that new model and it gave rise to the Black Panthers, the Weather Underground, and such like that. Fortunately, Martin Luther King, his vision of equality won the day back then, and they kind of lost with the radical side, and we were pursuing equality. But since then, they became very disillusioned with equality under the law because anti-poverty programs have failed. Well, because you can't just give people free stuff and expect them to then pick themselves up by the bootstraps and do well. So now we had a combination after that where critical race theory, it came to fruition in the 90s, which was critical theory combined with identity politics, which is a diversity, equity, inclusion, social justice, culturally responsive training, focusing on equity because it's soft and it very closely resembles equality. I even during a speech confused the two just because they are so close, equity, equality. But there's a huge difference because one is about the equality of outcomes versus the other one, the equality of opportunity.
All right. So they often see, I have often seen the very like comfort, empathetic. Let's say it relies on empathy, right? And it feeds off of empathy. And I've seen the images where they will have people of different heights. They're trying to watch a baseball game. And the funny thing is that they're not in the stadium, they're outside the stadium, almost like they didn't pay for a ticket. Right. And they're all trying to see the baseball game. And so one image will show them at the different heights. And then a second image will show them each with a crate under them. One person will have one crate, one person will have two crates, and the shortest person will have the 3 crates. And that's how they relate this analogy that if you just simply give the person who has the more of the disadvantage a few more advantages, a little more handout, then that person will be able to succeed. It is a very alluring narrative, is it not, Vin?
It is. The whole thing is just bananas, and especially working for the government, state and local, and in the teaching field, the education field, you see it all the time, and it's just bananas that you have to witness it. And sometimes you're a part of it, good or bad. It's just the whole thing just stinks. And I mean, look, I remember when I went for my Secret Service interview, and I'm 5'7", and 2 guys who came downstairs to pick me up, one was 6'4", and one was 6'8", and I said to myself, there is no way I am getting this job. I mean, I was a foot below I ended up getting the job, but like right off the bat, like that's how you start thinking, like, I'm not going to get this job, or because because I'm short, or I'm fat, or I'm wearing glasses, or I'm white, or I'm black. It's just the whole thing is, now the trans thing, the whole thing is just, it's a shame to live that way where you're basing your future around what everybody else looks like and what their beliefs are, and it just sucks.
And that's it. And that's right, Mike, is what we're getting. You know firsthand. That's what the children are getting in the school system coming up. And that's when we're also seeing disadvantage in policing and other agencies within that are under the state banner, civil service jobs, so to speak, where they're selecting people based on what they're claiming is their disadvantage. Like everyone's coming into the workforce with a handicap. They're allowing students to be raised with a handicap. That provides a disadvantage to them, first and foremost. Clearly, as Vinny saw, he was more than capable. It wasn't about height necessarily. Each and every person has an individual skill. That should be built upon, but they're not. Instead, they're building within the children and the workforce and the teachers that they're training that you have to find the person's weakness and harp on that.
Yeah.
When you sat on the committee for DEI, Mike, at the public school level, not only in the military level, you did it 2 times. You did it both for the military and then again for the public school level. When you sat on those committees, you thought initially that it was about bringing support to truly handicapped individuals, but that wasn't the case. What did you learn?
Now, in an ideal world, that's who they would have been focused on, helping opportunities of truly disabled persons, like physically disabled, children that were unable to learn because of, say, a mental inability. No, but what I found, and wasn't surprising based on the call to action sent out by the school district, was this was really based on going against the police, against law and order, and it ended up in the training showing against white males, white people, men who were considered the privileged. As you were saying, it's almost like it pays to be a victim. Children. And that's a large part of what we're seeing with the trans explosion in the schools. You have these white females who they don't really rate too high on the victim scale because they're not of color and they're not LGBT. Well, they weren't lesbians. So what they do, and unfortunately, a lot of them also have been shown to be on the autism spectrum, is they cling to the fact that, I could be a boy or I could be a boy. That then gets them status. Now they're in the LGBT, and there is no group in the past 4 or 5 years that's been given greater influence and leverage in the schools, across communities, in the news, as that group. And let me say, it's not the LGB, it's the T, which has attached itself, that is doing that. Yeah. And that has nothing to do with sex. That's a gender disorder, like dysmorphic disorder. It's a mental disorder. It was in DSM-4, which is the Bible of mental disorders. So I was doing a master's degree in psychology. I still have it, but now that's treated as something that is empowering and gives you status as a victim, and makes everybody else just shut up and do whatever it is you want them to do.
Yeah, listen, Mike, I have a gay friend. I'm very close with him, and he's not happy with all this stuff going on. He gets kind of, unfortunately, he gets sucked into this nonsense, which is nonsense. It has nothing to do with this type of movement. Right. And he's like, it gives us the normal gay person a bad rap, and I truly feel bad for him.
I've heard the same thing.
It brings me back to semantics. Right. So this is the manipulation of words. So semantics is the definition of a word, and they take it, they play with it, they manipulate it to come and mean multiple things. Right. So one of the things I want to just give some quotes from a testimony by Betty Rosa, head of the New York State Education Department. She did a Senate testimony back in January of this year. And of course, it's attached to the budget, so she has to speak on it. And she made quotes such as this: New York has the most ambitious and inclusive public education system in the nation. Ambitious and inclusive. Okay. She says that New York sets the standards, administers the assessments, the educator development. They oversee accountability and safeguard student rights. No mention of parental rights. So they are in there. They have an opportunity to design the curriculum that incoming teachers are going to be implementing. They also oversee that accountability. So if you're not doing what they say, what then is the repercussion? Also, on top of that, the assessments to the students, that is frightening because New York State, which they don't like to divulge, is one of the worst performing states, according to the National Educational Progress Association of Progress. They compare the entire world, not just they compare New York State to the rest of the countries in America, but then also on a larger scale, that particular organization examines them against the world. And they are amongst the most failing in the world and in America.
Right.
So you're looking at this and you say, well, what are you doing, Betty? What are you really doing? But instead, she's more important in the next quote that New York is a tapestry of communities, culture, and histories, not history. Different versions of histories, she says. And as they approach the 250-year anniversary, they're going to continue in this leadership. They're doubling down on advancing, here are the words, equity, dignity, and safety for LGBTQAI plus New Yorkers, quoted from Betty Rosa herself.
I'll give you two more letters they should use. BS. That's what all that crap is.
Right.
What's the definition of plus?
This door. Yeah, what is the plus?
I'm being serious.
They're opening this door. Vin, that's a good question. It's whatever they want it to be at that point. Whatever they're going to decide. Oh, yeah, we'll take that person as also a minority, someone who needs dignity. The words, again, focus on empathy. And all of us want to see people succeed and find their true, passion and faith and vocation in life. But it's sadly enough, it's like you said, Mike, what we're seeing instead is manipulation and children really going towards, or even workers, civil servant workers now, declaring themselves as a minority so that they can just move up in their field.
Right.
Yeah.
In your book, let's hop to the book for a hot second.
Sure.
I would like to just talk about this justified deadly force. You broke down in textbook style how they take these court cases, these police cases that we see on TV, starting with, George Floyd now it can be applied to the Minnesota situation, how they take it and manipulate the narrative. How did you find through your book and through your research, how media distorts the public? Tell us.
The funny thing is the media slams the police as having a disparate amount of deadly force shootings of black people because black people are 13% of the population, yet 26% of the people involved in deadly force shootings. Meanwhile, my research has found that 100% of the media reporting of deadly force shootings involve black people. So what I did was I looked at the USA Today front page. I used USA Today because it was the most published newspaper across America. It's in all the hotels from 2015 to 2018. And for those front page stories and teasers, I looked for deadly police shootings. And what I found, and to give you the background, there's about 1,000 such shootings each year. 50% of the people involved are white, 25% are black, 95% are armed. So of those shootings in those 4 years, that's about 4,000 shootings. There was 82 articles detailing 57 different black individuals that have been shot. A total of 132 times they named those individuals. And during all those stories, they mentioned one white person that had been shot in one of the stories talking about the black person that was shot. So 100% reporting. So if you think people are upset and pissed off and think that blacks are being executed by the police at a disparate rate or just outright executed, it's because that's what the media is telling them is happening.
Yeah, they're brainwashing the dumb. And think about this, Mike. How many criminal arrests there are per year? 7 million, right? Probably
10 million. 10 million arrests, about 500,000 violent crime.
Right. So out of those, how many do we hear are actually not so, kind of on the gray area, a half a dozen where they may go to trial? And out of those, how many are actually bad? How many are actually bad shoots?
About 5. You have about 5 questionable shoots. Now, and think about this. This is 5 out of 1,000, where 95% of the times the people are armed. Well, in every situation, there's a gun because the cop has a gun, and criminals fight for that gun. Criminals also are pretty adept at using their hands. They're not some bookworm geeks that are not doing anything physical. They typically are into fighting. So
because the majority of it's close quarters. It's last second. There's no standing out of range, 30 seconds shooting at a target that don't turn back. This is real life stuff. And a lot of people don't understand that. This ratio. I mean, you're better off, getting bit by a shark, for God's sakes. I mean, that's the ratio is so low. It's insane. You're
actually more likely to get struck by lightning than you are to be killed by the police in an unjustified deadly use of force as a black person. Not just it's crazy.
Interesting facts. Woof, with DEI. All right, so that's some of the breakdown, and we appreciate, Mike, everything you've done, the committees that you've been a part of, the way that you reach out to the public. I know you've been multiple times in law enforcement articles, aside from the book, and make appearances in places such as Fox News and other networks. It's been an honor to have you here speaking today, and if you wouldn't mind, maybe stay on for a few more segments as we delve into the next things that we're going to break down. We'd love to hear your input.
My pleasure. Love to join.
Awesome.
Vinny, bring us into the next one.
Oh my God. Amanda, show the next one with Mark Hamill. All right. This is a Mark Hamill post from last week about President Trump, if only. Okay. White House response says this is a sick thing to put on there. Mark Hamill grabs, he gets some feedback, some backlash. He then puts up another thing apologizing. Says he didn't mean it. He added, long enough to realize he'll be disgraced. He wishes he was alive long enough to realize he'll be disgraced in the history books forevermore. That's his defense to all this. My problem with this, outside of, look, I just, me, it goes out the window. Freedom of speech goes out the window when you incite violence. That's the way I've lived my life. That's the way I perform my job. But for the love of God, a few days ago, before that, or the day before that, he was with President Obama making a video. Where is President Obama condemning this? Right? And then when you look, moving forward, you had actors Charlie Sheen, Madonna, Johnny Depp, George Lopez, SNL. They crank out all these death jokes, assassination jokes. Yeah. And then we have even a picture of Kathy Griffin. You have that, Amanda? Yeah. All right? I mean, you instantly lost me as someone who stays in the middle of the road and tries to live his life as non-political as possible because of the jobs that we've held. You've instantly lost me as a fan, and now I can't even fathom going to see a show or listening to her because that's in the back of her head. Yeah. So what do we do? Is there any ramifications for all this? And I know, being a former Secret Service guy, we'd go and interview him, and they would go, "Oh yeah, I made a mistake. I really didn't mean it." And then that's the end of it. Nobody gets any kind of ramifications for this. And it goes on both sides. I didn't agree technically with what President Trump said when Rob Reiner died, even though Rob Reiner was ruthless. I didn't really agree with him saying good riddance or whatever his comeback to that. But you got to keep that out of it. And I don't understand all these actors. You were the people. Some of these actors and actresses, we were the people we made fun of in high school. That they were the thespians in high school, and now all of a sudden they're preaching to the choir how we have to live their life by that. And it's like, no, just keep your mouth shut. I will come and pay your movie. I will watch you. I will listen to you sing. Just keep the politics out of it. And you're literally Jimmy Kimmel, going back to Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, he alienated half of America by just ranting on Trump all day long. I mean, am I wrong? Lisa, am I wrong? What do you think?
Absolutely not. And look at CNN. Their ratings are amongst the lowest as well. And it shocks me, honestly, that they get this pushback and people like ABC continuing to allow him to spew the hatred, it adds to that insightful rhetoric. It adds to this, but it's a small population, honestly, that they're speaking to, for the most part. I mean, don't forget, President Trump won in a landslide, the popular vote as well as the Electoral College. So who are you really speaking to? When we look back at some of the events that the Democrats had held, their turnout was so low, especially the ones who were extremely far left. It's not to say, those on the extreme far right as well have shown bad taste in certain respects, like rhinos, as they call them, the Republican in name only. But not the type of where you want to say the president should be dead, should be in a grave. What are you thinking? And again, you're an actor. The best part that gets me is that a lot of them will go and play these roles, if they are hired to do so, that represent these American patriot people. And yet on the other end of it, they are, putting down America and kill the president.
Yeah, your career is based on a lie, and you're good at it. So why should I listen? Why should I listen to you?
Right.
It's just, and it's a big difference between watching like Gutfeld, like every day, every night, Gutfeld has like a joke on President Biden that, he was dead during his presidency and stuff like that, but wasn't wishing him harm. He's never once wished him harm. He pulls it, in the way where it's like it's a funny joke. But to ask for an assassination, I mean, you've been on threat calls and everything. It sucks when this country's so alienated based on, what Taylor Swift has to say, or, U2 or some other, some other rock band or something like that. It drives me crazy.
Well, unfortunately, because we do have even politicians that are pushing this narrative that think it's okay. Like you had Jim Comey, a former FBI director, and then you have all these people that are famous. Now, should they be famous? Look, I like to go back to the days where it was, you're a court jester, entertain me, and then get off the stage and shut up. Okay, you're not special. You're not a hero. You're not a stud. You didn't develop a cure for cancer. But anyway, they're given that platform, and people, whatever, listen to them. But you're talking about Obama not saying anything. That reminded me that great lefty thing. What is it? Silence is violence.
Yeah.
But the rules apply when they wanted to, which makes me, when I grow up, I want to be a freaking Democrat. I want to be able to say and do whatever crazy crap I want, and not be held accountable.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. I mean, what Obama sent out, what was his ex remark or something, alleged that the shooter, wasn't even after Trump, supposedly?
No, he said we didn't know what his motives were, and the manifest was already out there and publicized. It's just like, come on, stop playing this political game. Just, this is real life stuff going on. We need to be serious for a minute. Stop trying to brainwash the dumb. And it drives me crazy.
And you know what it is? They know that they're influencers, right? That has been the term of the mid 2000s so far. That that came about with the explosion of things like podcasts and things, such as TikTok and all the social media platforms, where now we have these influencers. The original influencers were always the politicians, because they were running the news cycle. They are inside the states and into the ear of the local community. They're the original influencers. So the power that they hold now with the expanded platform that they have is incredible. And the accountability needs to be there. Those are some laws that need to be revisited, because times have changed. And the fact that they're turning around and saying things that manipulate thought of the people, which we know that Obama was the president who changed the media requirements, correct, across news narratives. He opened it up that it just didn't have to be that the media had to be liable to things inside. They weren't liable to things that were reported outside the country, but they had to be more held accountable for things reported inside the country. And he changed that. So that's very interesting, because moving forward, more manipulation occurred across news networks as they began to be viewed as, which a lot of people don't know. If you watch like MSNBC, for example, those are held under entertainment ruling, not necessarily news sources. A lot of people don't know that.
No. And what a lot of people don't like, and whenever I have, a discussion with somebody, did you see that, any kind of big news, what I always do is I'll watch, because how many conservative stations are there? I'll watch Fox News. I flip it down to CNN. I watch MSNBC and see who's covering what. And if 2 out of 3 aren't covering something, all right, why aren't they covering something? If all 3 are covering something, at least I get a take on who's saying what, on both sides. And then you should try and make your decision. But these people just watch this one channel and they think that one person, I got to watch Joy Reid. I got to watch this one. And it's crazy. That's where they get their news from.
You pigeonhole yourself, right?
Yeah. And that's the problem. And you're right about the influence. I got to figure out how to influence. I can't even influence my kids. Never mind podcasting, for God's sake. I'm trying to figure it out.
Good luck.
You're right.
That's
right.
30 years military. I tried to talk my boy not into joining. What did he do? He left the University of Alabama and became a Marine.
Oh, good for him.
He's the cutest Marine ever. I love it.
That's right.
I love it.
That's right. All right. What do we got next, Lise?
Okay. We are going to move on to the Hantavirus. Listen, we still have coronavirus, traumatic disorder.
Yep.
So we could call it CVTD. This is insane. That the Hantavirus, but here's the twist. So there was a great press conference this morning, and we're seeing a much different view and speaking points coming from the Health and Human Services and the CDC this time. This is how it probably should have gone down the first time around with coronavirus, and this time they're doing the right thing. Here's the crazy thing. Press conference this morning, and the people leading the press conference are from the University of Nebraska Medical Center. And they divulged that they are the only pathogen center in the country. It's very interesting because I'm sure our viewers have never heard of the University of Nebraska Medical Center, yet we had a pathogenic pandemic just 5 years ago.
Right.
So I am just shocked that this particular facility was not consulted with the first time around under the Fauci regime. And now what we're learning is that this is being handled in a much different, smoother, more, stringent manner than what we were dealt with under the coronavirus. We have 18 patients that came off this ship that may be symptomatic. They went to the Nebraska unit. The Nebraska unit believes in having appropriate space, so they transferred 2 to Atlanta, again, with mild symptoms. And they're saying mild symptoms are that the person could have had a cold, person could have a stomach virus, but they just want to cover that it's any symptom at all. They're going to treat it with careful care. So 2 went to Atlanta. The other 15 are in regular Nebraska University Medical Center patient rooms, which are more like a hotel, according to the representative speaking at the press conference. And only 1 has been put into biomedical containment because they have more concerning symptoms. They were very clear to say that this particular virus is difficult to transmit. It has to be a prolonged contact with a symptomatic individual. So
Right.
A lot more calm. What we're coming out of, CNN and what I was hearing from them would bring some panic because 2 people are dead on the ship. The ship is returned. The passengers have been taken off the ship and they're being allowed to, go back into the country. The way that the representative said it this morning in the press conference is we're repatriating. Of course we are, but with very careful and known practices to watch the pathogen. Guys.
And the conspiracies are running wild. I mean, we have up to 100.
Wild.
Yeah, there's 100,000 cases, up to 100,000 cases a year of this. Not all that bad. Majority of them are, like you said, colds. Moderna's already had some sort of vaccine, so they've been on this for a while, and that's kind of interesting. But if you go down X, you'll see Hantavirus, panic campaign already looks pre-planned. Hantavirus is a side effect of the COVID vaccine. Read this post. That had 102,000 views. The other one had 385,000 views. The Journal, COVID 2.0, pandemic era conspiracies return after the hantavirus outbreak on the cruise ship. MAGA Voice 23, return to all corners of the world. They're going to try and do this again. So you give a little bit to these people, and they're just spreading wildfire, and again trying to brainwash the dumb. We'll see how this goes. I'm really not, I'm not the conspiracy guy. I just think that these people are just kind of running wild with this stuff and just trying to get everybody all spun up. I had to look up what a hantavirus was before this outbreak. Once this outbreak took place, what the hell was this? Got it from rats off an island, a bird watching expedition. I don't even know how does that take place when they're saying it's difficult to transmit, and you're telling us it's coming from, rat droppings or whatever. So how difficult was it, and what did those people do to contract it? Right. So I don't know, man. It's just weird. I don't think we'll see much of this. I think they'll see a big hype. I hope I'm right. I hope this doesn't turn into anything else. But they did say it is difficult to transmit. So let's just hope for the best. But I just find it odd that Moderna's vaccines, it's out there for this already, and we never even heard about really this. If you said 2 weeks ago I got the hantavirus, you'd be like, "What the hell is that?" Like, I mean, that's just me. I mean, I never really heard about it. Right. So I don't know, Mike. Any thoughts? What do you think about this stuff?
I was just impressed that the CNN commentators aren't still wearing a mask.
Right.
The way they were pushing that crap back during COVID. If COVID had the rate that they're saying, and this could be conspiracy, that it's a 40% fatality rate for Hanta. Imagine what they would have done back then, because COVID had what, 1 or 2% fatality rate?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the problem that we see is that you still see people driving in their cars with a mask on by themselves. And you're just like, oh my God, what in the world is going on here? When you think about that, either are you really sick or are you really that stupid that you would put yourself, subject to this nonsense? It's crazy. It's just crazy.
It's real. And unfortunately, those idiots' vote counts very much as much as you and I.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Amanda, we got a video on this, right? Let's play a quick video.
Health officials now suspect the first victim to contract the virus picked it up in Argentina before getting on that ship. In mid-March, he'd visited a landfill during a bird-watching tour, and officials suspect he contracted it from rodents. He likely infected his wife. There are now a total of 11 suspected cases, including a KLM flight attendant now quarantined with mild symptoms. Officials say she had contact with the first victim's wife, who died a day after the flight. 82 passengers and 6 crew members from that flight now being tracked by the World Health Organization. The WHO says a Swiss man who returned home tested positive for Hantavirus yesterday. He remains hospitalized.
So if it's that, like, if people are dying and you're getting that close, how is it so hard to contract if, the stewardess got it, or if they're like on the bird watching? There's still a lot of unanswered questions for me. I don't know. I hope we're right, and this is just an isolated thing, and it's all going to go away. I just hope that the public just doesn't go run in fear and the masks come out and all this other nonsense. Because one more, this wasn't publicized last year that a hantavirus person got it, in California last year. Now it's being publicized. So let's just hope it's wrong. But we do have one more video how we used to do it, right back in the 70s.
Yeah.
The 60s.
I'll air this one. This is great.
This is a good one.
Peter, what are you doing home from school?
They sent me home. Measles.
It's either measles or a strange case of red freckles.
You have got a temperature.
They told me 101.1. What's the record?
Never mind.
Oh, are you sure it's the measles?
Well, he certainly got all the symptoms. A slight temperature, a lot of dots, and a great big smile.
A great big smile.
No school for a few days.
Say hello to my dotted son for me. Tell him I'll bring him some comic books, and I'll see you later, dear.
Okay, honey, bye.
Boy, this is the life, isn't it?
Yeah. If you have to get sick, you sure can't beat the measles.
That's right. No medicine.
Inside or out. Like shots, I mean.
Don't even mention shots. Yeah.
Measles, measles, measles. Well, all the kids have now had the measles.
So have I.
Well, I had them years ago. Looks like the Bradys are finished with the measles.
Hold it. You're not through yet.
Alice, don't tell me you're coming down with the measles.
Oh, I hope so. I'd hate to think I was just learning how to blush at my age.
In 2026.
Weren't so terrible. But 2026,
yep,
they
wouldn't
take
be the
it
same.
to the next level. They had a CSI episode, I think one of the shows with Mariska Hargitay, and her son, who's a child, but might have contracted the measles. And they behaved like the world was coming to an end.
Right.
Huge difference
Yeah.
between the 1970s and 2026. So the whole episode, the teaser for the episode is like there's Mariska Hargitay, giving it to the mom who didn't vaccinate her child. You put everyone at risk. It was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so this is what they're feeding the public now. And it is really, social behavior modification.
Yeah. 100%.
That's what it is.
Could you imagine a mom just touching their kid's face at 2026 that had the measles? Like, you would like to forget it. It's so funny, but that's how we grew up. It's insane how times have changed.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, we also grew up with a video in between, a commercial segment that said it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? So we were a different group at that time, right?
Yeah.
So like they had to remind our parents, go check.
Listen, the street lights came on, you came home. That was the rule.
Yeah.
That was the rule. Crazy.
All
right.
Bring it back. So that's
What
it.
we got?
Hopefully all goes well with the Hantavirus. And thank you to the Nebraska University Medical Center for their quick and attentive action. And they'll keep us posted, I'm sure. But so far, so good.
Yeah. Cool.
Topic 4.
Marijuana. Amanda, throwing that the first photo. U.S. set to reclassify marijuana as early as, it's going to be this week. I don't know. I'm not a fan. I'm just not a fan. There are benefits to this. I understand that. But, I was doing some research, and this is not coming from a left or a right side, but the Psychiatric Times says, when we were young, marijuana contained 4% THC. Now it's approximately 20%, up to 95% in these cannabis stores. Cannabis uses a low but statistically significant increase in psychotic disorders, including bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, particularly in individuals with genetic vulnerability. I mean, I don't know. They're trying to downplay it. I do understand, what they're trying to do on the medical side, but you're bringing up a whole other factor. Psychology today says it can damage the normal functioning of brain and body systems. It's just frequent cannabis smoking increases your heart attack rate and stroke from 25 to 42%. There's a direct link to cannabis and certain kinds of psychosis. So I understand what the reasoning is to do that, but this is tough because when you lower this street level, because now this is like Tylenol or codeine, that's what it's classified as. So now it's really not like a big deal. But the street part of this is where the addiction and all this problems really come in. So I do have a problem with this. I don't know how you guys feel. I feel like we have enough of problems with these kids today. And I remember, back when I was a kid, people smoking marijuana. It is not like today. And that it's 10 times stronger and creates all these other problems and anxieties and everything else. And we see it. We think. I mean, you could smell it driving on the parkways, and people are driving. And there's no test, right now for a DUI with that. So it's tough. How do you regulate that? It's just, and it's still being, And I remember even when it was not as the other scheduling. We could never get that prosecuted anyway because it wasn't sexy. So unless you had 5, tractor trailers full with the kingpin on top, nobody wanted to be bothered with it. So it was very, very difficult to get this stuff, prosecuted for years. Never mind, a brick, which is, got good street value. It's got to start somewhere. Starts at the street level. You work your way up. We weren't allowed to arrest a person at the street level because nobody wanted to be bothered because they knew they were going to get probation. So.
Mike knows firsthand about that too.
Yeah.
In his own experience, he's had to deal. Correct, Mike? Speak to it. On how the leadership, right, of the law enforcement had relations with the drug dealers to uplift the community. What was the situation there? Talk to us.
Yes, we did have a rogue deputy police commissioner who her mission in life as a deputy police commissioner was to enable these criminals in the county as a part of a recidivist program, trying to help them out. But somehow they would end up getting information on upcoming police activity, which I don't think that was part of the program, but trying to keep them on the straight and narrow.
Right.
But that's a whole nother topic. But this is not marijuana of your VW bus hippie driving, relatives from the 70s days. You don't know what it's laced with. It's much more potent, as you were saying, and it is a gateway drug. And now it's being shown by influencers, and it's making kids, young adults, even grown-ups think that, it's just not a big deal. I can do it at any point. And then if it's taking, if somebody's smoking, you can detect that on a traffic stop. That's an easy tell. But if they're eating gummies, there's nothing there. You don't know, and they'll be under the influence. And something I tell anybody that, I really care about, one of the most dangerous things you're ever going to do is drive a car. It's not being a soldier. It's not be a cop. It's just being on the roads. And it's because you have people that are distracted drivers from, marijuana, alcohol, the phone, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Exactly. I presented a report to a legislature, to a local county legislature, approximately 4 years ago, and which it detailed the results of Colorado being the first state to legalize marijuana. And the report detailed from the Drug Enforcement Association in Colorado and how they showed the drastic increase in multiple areas, such as car accidents, homelessness, children being reported to, the Child Support Services or Child Protective Services (CPS) for being in school high, reeking of weed. Some of them in toxic situations because they ate the gummies, thinking it was candy. All of these things skyrocketed. I mean, we're talking literally anywhere between 120 to 352%, depending on the category. Not small increments. We're not talking, there was a 20% increase in, toxic digestion. These things, kindergarten teachers principals having to send letters home to please not, bring your, smoke marijuana in the vehicle as you drive your child to school. Because your child is also getting contact high, vomiting, and so forth. These things were just through the roof, and this was reported by the Colorado Drug Enforcement Section. I brought that report to a local county legislature that was considering legalizing it. It was interesting to watch the people who were there in support of it, people who you could clearly see were disheveled, had their own personal mental issues because they said so when they spoke at the 3-minute span to speak on the topic. And so afterwards, when I saved myself for last to present the report. Thankfully, the legislature, based on that report, had decided at that time to stall any passing of it. I think that has changed since then, unfortunately. But the evidence was so strong that this really is damaging when you legalize a narcotic. You're legalizing a narcotic here. That influences your psychology.
It's now a huge moneymaker. Right? People make it's $1 billion industry now.
And we're seeing politicians involved with that, right? And one of them is under investigation right now, the Virginia Senator, Louise Lucas. Right. She has an investment in these cannabis stores.
Right.
And so therefore she's pushing it throughout Virginia. They try to blame Trump for opening that investigation, but it turned out that it was actually done under the Biden administration when it was initially started.
What, Amanda? Do we have a photograph of that? Do we have an article? I thought we did. Let's see. Nope.
There was
found that out funny. That was a threat to democracy. That President Trump's going after personally a state senator because they did the raid on her place of business. Meanwhile, the feds invaded his residence and went through his wife's underwear drawer with no charges, but that wasn't a threat to democracy.
Right. No.
Well, yeah. I think it's a video. If we have a video, I'm sorry.
Federal agents executed search warrants at the office of Virginia Senate President pro tempore Louis Lucas as part of a reported corruption investigation. The FBI carried out multiple court-authorized searches at Lucas's office in Portsmouth, Virginia, while agents also searched a nearby cannabis dispensary located next door to the senator's office. The connection between the cannabis dispensary and the broader investigation remains unclear. Authorities have not publicly disclosed the precise focus of the investigation, what evidence investigators are seeking, or whether any criminal charges have been filed. An updated report noted, quote, multiple arrests at the scene, though it did not specify who may have been taken into custody. Neither the FBI nor Lucas's office have provided public comment on the searches.
So she hasn't been charged. The warrants are sealed. So let's see. But I think it's kind of odd that is right next to, adjacent to her
office.
So that's kind of weird. You know, Republicans are kind of keeping quiet on this. You know, Mike Jones, is senator, he's a Democrat. You know, he's saying that race is a factor. Democrats have the right to be suspicious. Someone saying, how was Fox News there? You know, they were first on the scene. Well, I don't know. Do you remember when Roger Stone, you know, in Florida, got locked up by, you know, a 70-year-old man with 17 different, you know, amphibious boats and 17 vehicles and M4s and AR-15s. No, it's not just for a 70-year-old man. Mike, how many times did you arrest a senior citizen and you just said, hey, come on down, let's do this like gentlemen? And
I can tell you, yeah, I've been on raids for real violent people that are known to have weapons, and we didn't have that many people, you know, at the door.
Amphibious boats on that poor guy's house. It was insane. But you know what? Listen, I guess this was the FBI. They went before a magistrate with an affidavit, you know, a statement of facts saying this is what we believe is taking place. The affidavit states why. The search warrant says where, what, and where, and what to do. And they executed. The affidavit supports the warrant. So let's see what happens in the future. It will be interesting, and I'm sure the race and all this kind of stuff will pop back up again, which is unfortunate. And that it's sealed. It's kind of, you know, whenever something's sealed, I'm always like, and you know this, Mike, like, what the hell is going on? Why is it sealed? Like, why can't we see this? So we'll see it. I'm sure we'll be talking about it next week. That's for sure. It should be opening up pretty soon.
But here's the conflict of interest for our viewers to think about, which I'm sure they are, is that if you have a politician who has an investment in a particular company, and then you see laws and statutes that are changing and they're going to benefit this, and the legislature has to pass this, right? The president could say, you know, I support this or what have you, but he still needs the legislature, Congress, to pass it. And if they are, and they have interests in it, that is not okay, because they're going to be making money off of this and passing it on to the American people when it harms the American people. How is that permitted is beyond me. The same, you know, the controversy they have with how do these people, such as AOC, such as Ilhan Omar, that broke out recently as well, where they come in as lower middle class or middle class individuals, and then suddenly within 2 years time of sitting in their elected seat, they become multimillionaires. Nancy Pelosi, another one, lifetime career as a politician, where, you know, now I think it's $175,000 a year. When she started out, Lord knows it must have been about $50,000 a year. And so over a lifespan, you even if you're making $175,000, you know, over 30 years where you increase, you're still not going to be a multimillionaire. Oh, you know, it was the husband's investment. Oh, it was this, you know, family investment. Really? No insider trading, no passing certain laws and statutes to benefit yourself in the long run.
No, I know. And why have a business that's always on like the gray area, like a cannabis store? Like if you're gonna, you know, why that type of business where you know you're already going to be scrutinized just from owning that type of business? And that's, you know, if it was a sporting goods store, if it was a you know, a restaurant, nobody would really care less. But the fact that it's a cannabis, and laws are, you know, going to her benefit with these cannabis stores, and these cannabis laws are all intertwined. She's making more money. You know, it's not a good thing. And you know, good. You know, I hope that something like this, and we always try and take politics out of it. But if you're doing something wrong, left or right, then there's got to be a consequence. And that's really about it. And you know, hopefully we'll see what these warrants have to say.
Right.
Yeah, it'd be great to see everybody held at the same level of accountability. Like
That's
they're
it.
going after that intel analyst who had prior knowledge about the invasion with Venezuela and made like 500 grand betting that Maduro was going to be taken out. And they're going after him, taking his job, making him pay it back. All right, then just do the same thing to politicians who benefit financially from their office.
That's right.
No, it burns me up when they say, "Oh, I'm going to resign," like Swalwell.
Yeah.
You could just assault tons of women.
Right.
All right,
And
I'm
then
going to
you're
resign.
Yeah. And you
So
know
I'm
what?
a Democrat.
Back to Venezuela, Mike. You know, I'll defend this to the end. That was an arrest warrant executed by the military. That's all that was. And people went so overboard. That's all we did. We went in with the military. We executed a federal search arrest warrant and brought it back, which was an HSI-led case. So that was, that good for them.
That was awesome.
Yeah, that was great.
Some good things.
All right, what do we got? We got a few more minutes to talk about the New York sanctuary laws. Oh my God, what do we got, Amanda? We got a photo first. We got a video. What do we put up first there? Mondani. Okay. So what? It's not going to get any better. You know, my friends are all concerned. They're all dealing with this nonsense now. This is a problem. This is a problem. They want. You can't enter any place without a judicial warrant. There are so many people here that are here illegally. You can't have a judicial warrant for every single person. You're not supposed to be here. Therefore, we have to grab. That's it. You don't need a judge. It's very easy. Do you have your papers? Yes, you do. Okay, fine. You're here. It's the mess. It's everything. It's just, I know Hochul. I know Homan. They've been fighting. I know we have a video on Hochul. Do we have one? Or New York restrictions. Yeah. They've been fighting back and forth.
It really makes you wonder why she wants to hold on so much to these sanctuary cities. Again, self-benefit, perhaps for a very contentious election that's coming up, right? Yeah. Where she's going up against Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman, who is a law enforcement guy who doesn't believe in the sanctuary status, who has fought back on her with the COVID mandates, who fought back on her with the DEI initiatives. And so here we go, where they're two opposite polar respects, and she's now doubling down on what she, I guess, hopes is going to secure her victory. Again, all self-serving purposes, regardless of the long-term damage to the people of New York State.
Yeah. All based on a census and a population, so they can have more seats in the House. Amanda, I know we got a few minutes left. Play that video with Hochul.
We just received word that Tom Homan made some comments at a speech he's giving, saying that he is sending in a surge of ICE agents to the state of New York. Should we have if this legislature passes what I introduced in January, known as local cops, local crimes. The premise behind this is simple, that local law enforcement is there for one purpose, that is to help protect our communities. I've invested over $3 billion to help local law enforcement. We can see the results. Crimes are dropping dramatically across the state from Buffalo to New York City, and we're proud of that. We also will continue working with ICE in cases of dangerous criminals. We always have, always will. That will not waver. All I'll say to Mr. Homan is that Donald Trump himself said he would not send a surge of ICE agents to the state of New York unless I ask. I'm not asking. Thank you very much, everyone.
You know what? I could talk about this for hours. Mike, local police officer, what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts is the people need to get out of New York City like they've been doing and go to places like Suffolk where they believe in the rule of law, or Florida, a state that does. Right. And I feel bad for that minority of New York City voters that vote against these radical people. But the rest of them that vote for it or don't vote at all are getting exactly what they deserve.
Mm-hmm. Yep. 100%.
110%. And this is the issue, right? We already know that the New York voter rolls are a mess. Many people have already uncovered much of that, especially with New York Citizens Audit, and especially with the weird things that occurred when we had the 2022 election, where she was up against Zeldin and there was a complete hack of an entire county's IT system. These things right around election time, there's always something going on that's suspicious. And so with this, securing a sanctuary status and not allowing Homan to exercise what he can, but claiming that we have policing communities where they're taking care. She has handcuffed the police department. department. Mike, has she not? You're newly retired. How are the police officers truly handcuffed? And why is, to show us how and what she's saying is false.
Well, she's saying that you're supposed to turn a blind eye to criminals in your area. And they talk about how the public, that they're doing this so that the communities won't be afraid of the cops. Those communities are victimized from within by these illegals, because the illegals live within that same cultural community. And in this case, they're raping and molesting their nieces, their friends, relatives, and it's all going under the radar because the public's not hearing about it. But that's why we have more cops that are going to detective assignments in special crimes, victim crimes, or sex crimes that have to speak Spanish, because that's what's going on. But you won't hear any of those stats ever.
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing guest today, an amazing show. I just want to say thank you so much again to Mike Simonelli for being a part of our podcast today and bringing truth to the people. Don't forget to subscribe. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Find us where you can. We love our whistlers.
Thanks, guys. Have a great week.